Okay, so crazy idea. We're getting tons of international interest. A global rollout would be a huge hit. Let's talk after lunch. Global rollout. Where do we start? Already done?
Hello. What's up, everybody? How's it going? Rymar Francisco, how are you?
What's up, everyone?
It's going well. Very excited to be here. Big announcement. It's going to be a great stream. It's an incredible guest as well. I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whole lineup, huh? Manny outdoing himself today.
Oh, man, big lineup here. We have community favorite Victor coming on the show shortly, and then we have Vic, product designer here at Replit, to tell us all about Agent 4, what surprised her, what are people liking, answering your questions. I'm sure you have a bunch of questions about Agent 4, so cue those up. And then we also have Cody and Nick from the enterprise team to help us talk about what's happening on the enterprise side, what they're excited about there. So I know some of you have been asking for more of that in the chat, so cue up those questions. But first, Francisco, I think you have a couple of community announcements that you wanted to share.
Yeah, we just have an incredible, amount of things coming up next week. We are, I mentioned it earlier this week, but we have about 21 live streams basically kicking off between now and the end of April. There's a lot of content coming along the pipeline. I highly recommend checking out our, Replit community home. Just always have the latest with all the latest events, kind of what's coming down, and really what's going on. So keep an eye out for that. We have new programming as well being announced pretty soon here. Again, going a little bit deeper on the deep dives, and also maybe just going a little bit more on the intros for people that are maybe trying to learn a little bit more of the bare basics of vibe coding, getting started. We're going to be doing some more additional content there as well. And just for the ambassador program, keep an eye out on the ambassador program. We're really good. It's been invitation only for probably about 4 or 5 months now, and we're really kind of going to go public with it. So if you're a builder, you're hosting, Replit events in person or online, helping teach others just how to make the most of the tool. We want to connect with you. We want to, have you be a part of the program. And there's also events happening globally right now. We have an event in Ghana. We have Peru coming up, India. We have 2 events in Japan next week. Some of those which actually Replit team will be there. I will be there myself. So really want to connect with you and get to meet you all. But yes, a lot more coming soon. And yeah, please be sure to check out the Luma calendar. We'll drop some links here in the chat here very soon. And yeah, please keep in touch and stay like up to date with what's happening. A lot more coming soon.
Francisco, international traveler now,
Yeah.
professional. Where should we
Here
go
and
next?
there.
Where should we send the team next? Drop it in the chat. I know there's always like a lot of folks from Brazil. We've got Marcelo down there, UK, always representing very well. But tell us where we should be going next.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let us know. I mean, Brazil's a pretty big contender. So maybe one of us will be down there very soon. We'd love to meet you.
Yeah. Yeah, I just dropped the globe in the comments too. If you're just joining us, we have a globe that we share that you can drop in and sign and put your pin. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And we also like to hear it in the chat. So let us know where you're watching from in the chat itself. And then, yeah, we just shared that little globe. Drop a pin, say hi. You can leave a little message and let us know where you're watching from.
Very neat. All right. So, Raimar, we have a big announcement that we want to share. So, let's go. Hit the horn. Super necessary. So, if you saw our socials, we got we did a big drop that we're super excited to share with you. So, Raimar, why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah. Do we want to cut to the screen share or?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Oh, we needed like bump. We need that little intro. Anyway, we didn't have that queued up. Okay, so Buildathon. We had so much fun with the mobile Buildathon. Like, it was so cool to see you all kind of take your ideas and bring them to life using the new Replit mobile stack. That we started thinking, and a lot of you asked, like, hey, we were in Discord, a lot of you were asking, like, hey, we should do more Buildathons, especially at the end. People were like, are we going to do this again? And we were like, you know what? We should totally do this again. So for Agent 4, we're going to go bigger. We're going to go, like everything else. We're just going to expand and cover all of the aspects of what it takes to bring your creative idea to life over a 3-week launch. So it's going to go from idea to launch, explore, build, ship. It's basically a 3-week cycle, going to start Tuesday. So next live stream, we're going to do a deep dive, and we're going to start with exploring your idea. So I want to walk you through kind of the Buildathon itself, top to bottom. It's all in sync with the new Agent 4 capabilities. So if you're not aware, we've got this beautiful new canvas that allows you to explore ideas quickly. So we're going to show you how you can like start thinking about exploring business concepts, validate ideas quickly. The whole process, the whole Buildathon is about like, how do we get this idea that's been in your head into the real world, right? If a business, a story you're trying to tell, an album you want to sell, maybe you're an artist. I don't know what it is that you're trying to do, right? But we're in this era where these tools are just getting so good at building stuff. And we talk about this all the time on the stream where the challenge becomes distribution. And so we're going to build a whole cycle around not just building things, but validating those ideas and then taking those to market. So it's going to kind of have like this whole loop, this whole like iterative cycle. So again, 3 core weeks. And then we'll announce the 4th week, we'll announce the winners, and we'll walk you through exactly how that's going to play out. Week 1, we'll explore the ideas fast. Week 2, we'll bring those, we'll build the idea, we'll actually make the thing, the MVP, the prototype. And then the 3rd week, we'll launch and actually take this thing to market. Each week, we'll start out with a little bit of community news updates. You guys already get an email about that, but we'll include some Buildathon updates. Tuesday, we'll keep doing our deep dive. So we'll help you level up your vibe code skills. We'll take you to the next level. We'll get like into the nuances of the stuff that we're building. I think Manny and I will be building some stuff alongside you all. So as part of the Buildathon, we're going to just get hands-on. And then Wednesdays, we'll build together in Discord. So in addition to the live stream, one of the things we did last for the mobile Buildathon were these Wednesday builds where you all shared your stuff with us. We looked at it in real time. We did live feedback. We kind of critiqued the stuff that you were building. We had all sorts of like moments for us to see what you're building, share insights, and a lot of people that really helped them kind of shape the direction and refine and polish the product they took to market. And so we thought there was a lot of value back. We're going to bring in experts, other professionals, other people who are just really killing it in Replit to help do some of those same things on Wednesdays. Thursdays, we're all going to distribute, right? So a big part of this is going to be reviewing other people's work, sharing what you're doing, building a story, right? So week after week, we're going to ask you to kind of build upon your story, and we're going to share a little bit of secret sauce every week so you guys can't get too far ahead with what you're building. And then Friday, we're going to wrap it up with a showcase and kind of recap everything that's been going on and highlight the best submissions, show like the best that people are building, maybe invite some of the builders on to chat with us. And so for the next 3 weeks, this is going to be our loop, and then on the 4th week, we'll have a special finale week where we'll announce the winners. We'll close up the competition, and so let's walk through the timeline real quick, and then we'll jump into prizes and questions. Okay, so we'll kick off again next week. Each week there will be a checkpoint. So each week you'll need to submit your checkpoint about what you're building. Again, 3 weeks in, we'll open it up to make your final pitch. We'll open it up to the official judging. We're going to have judges from the community, from the Replit team, and maybe some fun celebrity guest judges if we can close those deals. So yeah, and we're giving away tons of prizes. We went hard during the mobile build-a-thon, but we're going even bigger this time with over $40,000 in total prizes. The grand prize is going to be $10,000 cash. But each week we're going to give away $2,500 cash. And then as a grand prize, there will be 10 different categories that we award a winner in as well. You'll get $2,500 in credits for that. And then 5 runners up each week will get $1,000 of Replit credits. So each week we're going to do a big cash prize and a bunch of credits. And then overall there will be, again, another cash prize and a bunch of credits issued. So there's a bunch of FAQs here. We're going to roll things out over the next couple of days. You can go and start now. You can log in and claim your profile. This is open to do now at buildathons.replit.app. And we'll share that and link that in the comments. But yeah, what say you, Manny? What says the crowd here?
I got a couple of good comments on this. I think the other thing to highlight, Rymar, is the fact that we're going to have that Discord server up and running.
Yep.
That was such a big hit with the mobile buildathon. People loved being in there. One, to connect with other builders, to share what they're doing, get help, share their ideas. But also, you were doing a lot of exclusive content just for that community,
Correct.
like deep dives, live office hours. And so to bring that back and to make it bigger and expand the pool of folks that are going to be participating, I think that's something that people are really going to love.
Yeah, and maybe let's actually spend a second talking just about the Discord generally, because like we've been opening and rolling out gated Discord access to pros, as well as folks that were in the previous Buildathon, as well as ambassadors. And thanks to those of you who have signed up early and really helped us kind of streamline that workflow. By the way, that whole thing was built in Replit, the Discord bot, the login with Replit, and the whole auth system. And so it's been super cool to explore that. But yeah, the Discord was a big success for the mobile buildathon and just generally for the community. And so we wanted to amplify that. And so, yeah, expect us to be doing a lot more programming inside of there. You can go now to the community hub. It's replit.com/community. And you can click on the Discord link there. And again, if you have the access, you'll be if you have a pro, you'll have access, or a pro plan, you'll have access. A ambassador, you should have access. If you have a Replit email, you can also access. And there's one more that I'm missing. Oh, if you were from the other Buildathon, you should also have access. And we'll also give access to this here. That will open up Tuesday. So you can't access this now. There will be a new block that is added to this page on Tuesday that will allow you, once you register for the Buildathon, to then go ahead and claim access to the Discord as well. So this isn't just going to be about you building solo. We're really going to try to figure out how do we, like we usually do, it's take your feedback, bring that into the mix, and really make sure we get hands-on as best we can with everyone who's building with us.
And watch out. Looks like we have Ruth in the mix too. She sees prizes. She's ready to go, Ruth, man.
Hey, there's going to be
going
some
2 for 2, dude. She can do a
one.
streak, dude.
Well, somebody brought a good point too last time. I don't remember who was it that said it, but that the mobile app buildathon came with like the Apple developer account and the complexity of having to like push to Apple, and like sure, mobile apps will be a part of this, and I think we'll have a category for like the best mobile app, but this is going to open up to web apps, to animations, to like the whole thing, right? Like, so across the full creative stack, you're going to be able to essentially compete. And the folks who do the best at packaging that, so if that's a mobile app and a web app and a nice presentation and whatever you package up, like I think there's going to be a lot of fierce competition. I'm sure of it for this buildathon.
Yeah, totally. I think we're going to have like so many more people than the mobile buildathon.
Yeah.
And to Joy's question here, yeah, I mean, the tagline here, or the headline here, is bring your creative ideas to life. And I keep thinking back to our conversation with Ruth, where like you just have to finish something and put it out there in the world. You just can't have a bunch of vibe coded projects that you're never sharing and not getting any feedback on.
Yep.
So this could be a website for yourself. This could be a game. This could be a mobile app. This could be a new business that you're launching, or maybe you want to set up an online store. It's really whatever is top of mind for you, whatever pain points you want to solve, and having Replit agent help you along the way and get those out there into the world. So yes,
Yeah.
Joy, whatever you have in mind, just come. That can be apps, mobile apps, a website, an online store, just something that you need to get out in the world and sharing with people.
Yeah, and I think you don't even need to. The competition, the prizes are great, but I think even using this as an accountability thing, right? I bet there's a lot of people out there that have been really interested to see what's happening with all this AI stuff, and they're like, "I'm going to get to that. I'll tinker with that. Maybe I'll look into it." But this is your opportunity to like set some time aside every week and say, "Let me actually, with a cohort of people, figure out like let me figure out how to use this stuff." Right? Like I was at a big tech event yesterday. We have a tech meetup here locally, and it's funny how we live in this Replit bubble and this AI bubble, and there's a lot of like stuff that like I just assume everybody knows about Replit and is it building with agentic tools. But then you go out into the real world, and like lots of people don't know about this stuff. And some of the folks that I was talking to, they're like, "Oh, I've heard of this, but I don't really know how to use it. I've been thinking about like how do I set some time aside." And so it's like if you're one of those people that's like maybe just interested in this is also just a good way to hold yourself accountable, work with a bunch of folks that are kind of interested in thinking about the same thing, and just you never know what kind of collisions will happen. Oh, one thing we didn't mention here is like we're going to allow teams this time, so you'll
that's
actually be
right.
able to connect with other folks. And so like that will be interesting too, to see how maybe you team up with somebody in Discord. Maybe somebody's really good at design and somebody's good at building and somebody's good at the visuals, and you guys put together a little powerhouse and you treat this like an agency where you put together a whole package that you're going to take to market. So I'm really excited to see how creative people get and how they, like just leverage Replit to push the limits of what you think you can do over the course of 3 weeks to launch something cool.
Oh, we got
Yeah,
Chris joining in the mix. So
Hey.
we're gonna have some players here, dude. Me, Reimer, we're gonna be in there doing our own things too. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. And then I also like to Reimer, to your point, is it's a great launch pad too. So like
Yeah.
Ruth had an idea. I think she didn't the app that she built ultimately was not something that she came in with to the Buildathon. She got in there and she pivoted, she figured things out, and then that's when she went with the Ghost AR app. So even if you don't have an idea, I think show up. Week 1 is about ideation and getting to the idea. So just show up. I think if you're motivated to learn about how to leverage tools like Replit to build stuff and get stuff out there in the world, and you want to do that with the community, you would do that with us, this is the perfect competition for you.
Yeah, and if you've been watching any of the deep dives, you've seen us wrestle with this. And part of bringing an idea to life is just kind of tangling with reality, right? And so an idea in your head is always perfect. I've never missed. Manny, you shoot basketball, right? I've never missed a shot in my head. Shooting basketball. I play pool, so every time I like get up to the pool table, I'm like, oh yeah, for sure I can make this, and then I have to execute the shot, and I miss all the time, right? And so, but then you get better because you practice. And so digital stuff is just like that. And if you're somebody with an idea in your head, just being around other people, thinking through how to get that out of your head and then turn it into something tangible is like a process, right? There's a creative flow. There's a thing that happens back there. And so we want to just share that. I think it's really cool to see other people do that. And again, the potential for what people build here, one thing we're doing this time too that we didn't do for the mobile buildathon is we're gonna this whole thing is a gallery. So this site that you're seeing here, you'll log in. The thing you can do right now is set up your profile, so you can just add your bio, add your social links, and set up your profile and just be ready. Tuesday, the portal will open up. So when this countdown timer finally counts down, the portal will open up, and you'll be able to actually like submit a project and kind of see what the workflow is going to be like. We'll go into that more on Tuesday. But the gallery inside of here is going to allow you to kind of see what other people are building. And we're going to showcase and highlight the best stuff. One of the things, again, on the mobile side is it was a little hidden. And it was, we didn't have like a gallery. We didn't let the audience vote. One of the biggest pieces of feedback we got was like, hey, we want to see what other people are doing. And so this time we're going to make that very public. We're going to let you all kind of showcase and connect and see and like just interact with the stuff people are building. And so distribution is going to be a big part of this. Like a whole day of our week, Thursday, is just going to be dedicated to you all voting, sharing, engaging, leaving feedback. So part of your requirements for participation will be like giving other people feedback. And so again, we hope this is just an immersive, fun way to keep yourself accountable, maybe win some fun prizes, and also push yourself to the limit creatively.
And one thing also I wanted to mention was just a lot of people are asking, like, am I a beginner? I'm just starting off. Can I join for this? Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
This is the best place to join. You want to meet other builders and kind of just riff on some of your ideas. If you're not really interested in competing, that's totally fine. I think one of the things that I remember seeing in Discord was just, hey, the best thing that maybe came out of this buildathon was really just a Discord and people we got to meet, as we kind of put our ideas together. So all are welcome. We highly encourage you to join. And if you want to, join a community with other people and other builders on Discord, this is the best way to get access, and just be able to kind of just jump into it next week.
Yep.
So many great questions. Keep dropping them in the chat. And also just know that on Tuesday, we're going to go in depth on Tuesday on all of this. So sign up for our Tuesday show. And for right now, we just need you to go to that link. It's posted in the YouTube channel. We'll also post it on LinkedIn and X for those folks as well. Just sign up, set up your profile, and then we'll let you know when Tuesday kicks off as well.
Yeah.
All right. With that, let's bring on our awesome guests onto the stage. Thank you so much. I'll bring you back. I'll bring you back in a bit, Raimar.
See you guys in a bit.
Hey, Victor, how's it going?
Hey, Manny. Thanks for having me on.
Victor, are you thinking about joining the Agent 4 Buildathon?
I was just hearing about it right now, and I'm definitely joining.
Oh, let's go. Okay, so Victor, you're a community favorite. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us about what you've been building with Replit, and just tell folks about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm based in Iceland. I'm a non-technical person, quit my job last year and started my own agency. And we do two things. And at my company, we do agency work for other companies, just like contracting gigs, making software. And then we also do our own software services products for our portfolio. And we do it all on Replit. So everything we build is on Replit. We're a team of 2. And I'm looking at a whiteboard in front of me right now, and I was counting it's 11 projects that we're running simultaneously, all on Replit, contracting jobs, and then also our own products.
Amazing. Can you talk a little bit about how you first started using Replit and why you've stuck with it for so long? How's it been helpful for you?
Yeah, so our kind of founding theory at my company, because it's just the 2 of us, we wanted to find an AI tool or a platform where we could collaborate. My co-founder is a bit more technical, so he kind of was always the person building the stuff while I was maybe, selling, designing, taking care of operations and stuff like that. But we wanted just the company to be the 2 of us, and we wanted to be on, a level playing field, both contributing to kind of all the departments at our company. And we tried, in my opinion, like all of the major platforms like Bolt, Base44, Lovable. We did a no-code tool called Bubble, and we kind of just felt like none of them, we hit a ceiling with all of them really quickly, and we couldn't kind of get anything to production. So my co-founder, he had been a Replit user like since 2019 or something, using it as an online IDE. So he just said like, hey, I think these guys just launched an agent, like a coding agent. Why don't we try out Replit? And that was kind of the first time where we could go from 0 to 1 with a coding agent, from idea to production, and then, started making revenue with those products that we built with Replit. And, a friend of mine, he said the other day, like, oh my God, the bet that you took on Replit has surely paid off. And I never thought about it as a bet, but it kind of was, because we put a lot of time and effort into learning how to use Replit, and you're just spending time on the platform. And at the time where we first started using Replit, it felt to me, especially like a non-technical person, like such a superpower. But then just month by month by month, it felt just like a more of a superpower. So with the launch of Agent 4, for example, and the Agent 3 for that matter, I can feel kind of my superpower just growing while you guys are just building the product.
Amazing. So you started a company a year ago. You had a technical co-founder, so he can set up a dev environment. But then if he wants you to contribute, that's harder for you to do as a non-technical person. So why not move everything to Replit? He can do everything he needs, because what most people don't appreciate is that Replit is a pretty well fleshed out IDE, even for technical people. There are a lot of technical people that will use Replit, super convenient to do, especially from a DevOps perspective. so he can continue to do his technical work, but also that enables you to go in there and work with agent and make your contributions as well, even if you're not all that comfortable with code.
Yeah, because when we started out, one of the things that was a positive for us is because we didn't know Replit that much at the time. We weren't like super users, but we knew there was no lock-in effect. So we just thought like, okay, if we get some progress, we at least, and if we get stuck, we can just kind of, you know, uh, continue with our projects on other platforms or with something like Cloud Code or something. But what actually ended up happening is my co-founder, who is an engineer, he doesn't work like an engineer anymore. He just works like me, like a non-technical person. He just uses Replit primarily for everything. So, I've heard so many stories of people like, oh, I'm using Cloud Code because I'm a developer. But he's like, why? Why don't you just use Replit? Like, it's so much more efficient. It's so much more fun. So, and also we had a big debate early on about being opinionated, and we ended up agreeing that being opinionated in the age of AI is not as valuable as it used to be. Like he was opinionated about a tech stack, about how we should build things, but now we kind of just trust the agent because it's so good. Um, so yeah, we kind of leave the opinions mostly to the agent.
Yeah, totally. Especially for me as a non-dev, it's really helpful for me to just go in and describe what I want and the functionality that I'm looking for, and then just have Replit agent figure out all the technical backends and tell me how it's going to get there. But I just want to describe where I'm trying to get to.
Exactly.
Perfect. So you had this great post recently around making $120,000 in 2025, and now you're excited to, you're targeting over $1 million in 2026, and a lot, and part of that is because of the new Agent 4 features and releases. Can you talk a little bit about that? What's got you so excited about Agent 4?
Yeah. So when we started using Replit, I think it was Agent 2, and we could do a lot of things in a short amount of time. But then with Agent 3, it just kind of compounded, and then now with Agent 4, it's compounding even more. So all of our revenue is in Icelandic krona. It's the currency here. So I'm kind of doing an exchange rate. It's like we did 14.5 million Icelandic krona last year. It's like approximately $120,000. And what happened last year is we kind of launched our first portfolio SaaS, which is doing great. It's doing 20-30K a month in revenue. And then we also started doing these agencies gig. And what ended up happening last year is like we had 3 agency gigs, and we just thought like, okay, we can't spend our time so fragmented doing both our own products and then a lot of agency jobs. But then with Agent 3 and then now Agent 4, we're actually like calling clients back that we refused, and we're telling them like, hey, we got some time right now, but we don't have more time. We're just more efficient, and that's purely because of Agent 4 and the tasks feature and running everything in parallel. And what that does to someone like me, who like I had a mental block for such a long time where I couldn't commit to working in Replit unless I had like at least an hour really to get into the session and to work. But right now, if I have 10-15 minutes available, I'll jump in, create a few tasks, and then just let them run.
And I think the other interesting angle here, Victor, is that you're right now you're a team of 2, and collaborating with a team of 2, I think that's manageable. We also have some additional collaboration features in Replit 4 that I think help that part. But I think if you're looking to grow the team, like so eventually get to 3, 4, 5, I would imagine that some of the additional collaborative features in Agent 4 are going to be helpful for that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. We set out with a rule that we wouldn't increase the headcount at my company because we really wanted to try to use agents and AI as much as we could just to kind of reduce the overhead. I mean, we don't have any overhead really. We have, our salary and then a cheap office. So I think like the way we used to collaborate before is we would kind of allocate time on projects, and I would really never work in the same project as my co-founder, and if we did, we would then fork it. Do you remember the fork in the project?
Yeah.
And then we would
Right.
we would work
Right.
in two different forks and then merge them and then have merge conflicts and stuff like that. But right now we can work in all of the projects at the same time, no problem. And what excites me though with the collaboration features is we can also invite other people into our organization just for a short amount of time on these projects to then work with us if they have any, feedback. These can be clients, even. So
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. That if you want to have like an expert on a particular topic come in, like maybe like a security expert, just come in really quick and take a look at your project. You can do that now pretty straightforwardly. And then also like sharing projects with clients, showing what you're building for them. I think they'll love to see the behind the scenes and like their project coming together. Let me bring on Reimar here onto the stage. Reimar, what's any questions from the chat that we want to take for Victor?
There's just a lot of folks excited about Agent 4 and building with Replit and kind of, like shouting you, like cheering you on.
Any folks from Iceland on the chat?
Yeah, if you're in
Call it out.
Iceland, shout it out. Victor, I have a question for you generally. Like, can you talk a little bit about your background as a builder? You talked a little bit about working in Bubble and kind of transitioning or tinkering with like some of these different platforms. Like, are you technical by nature? How did you get into the business of building software for folks? How did you stumble into this whole thing?
yeah, so it kind of has a long story. I started doing like startups when I was 17. I think it's like 13 years ago here in Iceland. And all of these startups have been software related startups. I've worked as, I've had every possible hat and role at a software startup except like a developer or a coder. I made like 3 honest attempts at trying to learn how to code, but then I just started describing myself as being code dyslexic, and I never got past setting up an environment, and then I never got anything to production, and it was really, really frustrating because then I had to rely on like co-founders and third-party developers, and eventually had to raise some money if I wanted to do anything. And during these 13 years, I've gotten a lot of insight into all aspects of building a software product and a software business. And then when I kind of discovered Replit, that was when I found like a superpower, and everything came together really, where I could use all of the experience I had gathered over the years, and that kind of final missing puzzle of being able to create software myself was just the huge unlock for me.
Yeah, I wonder how many folks there are like that out there, because I have a very similar story too, where I tried to like learn to code and just couldn't, and then I got into the whole no code thing, Zapier, Integromat, Make, whatever, blah blah blah. That led to like Webflow and other things, and now with Replit, it's kind of similar path to you. I wonder how many other folks there are out there. Somebody just asked, what was your first client? How did you land your first client? So like when you started selling this stuff, like how did you actually go from I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just tinkering, to, hey, I'm making money now?
Yeah. So for the agency jobs, we just started telling people that we were building software, and eventually someone from our network, like a dude we know from school, like a bit older than us, reached out and like, hey, I have a project, you guys want to do it? And we had been talking about creating software for a while with AI and how it could reduce the costs of creating software. So most of the inbound leads that we got were like, hey, I want to build software, but I don't want to pay a lot of money for it. So those were our first kind of agency gigs. And then the inbound leads that we have right now are based on word of mouth, and then the fact that we did a PR campaign. We went on the news, we did radio shows, we did podcast shows, and all of the kind of shows and interviews that we did was about talking about creating software with AI and how we could reduce the costs of what goes around in the Icelandic market from 60 to 80%. So it started with a LinkedIn post where we just said, like, if you have a quote or an offer from these 2 big software companies in Iceland, we will do the same amount of work, but for 60 to 80% lower price. And then with the products that we're building for our portfolio, like our SaaS products that we own, we had kind of a methodology of building them, and then we had some rules. We didn't want to spend more than a month building it, and then we did not want to build more than an additional month in validating it. And when we were validating, we just went around. Like, I just walked into some companies and some stores and just started asking people questions. Then I tried to book some meetings, and eventually, we found some beta customers, and they were really happy. And then it just, it's kind of just a
Gotta
really,
grind it
really
out, right?
grind. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you can't skip that step. I think you have to grind it out in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then you can automate, and then you can do, but as the saying goes, do things that don't scale, I think is really, really valuable.
Victor, can you talk about some of the prospects that you're targeting? Are you targeting a particular industry or a size of business? Just curious if you're trying to develop like a niche of some sort.
In the agency business or with our products?
In the agency business.
Yeah, no, we're just targeting
Just
everything.
generalist.
Yeah. So if you need a web app or a mobile app or anything in between, a platform, we're doing a platform for a startup here in Iceland, which is a native mobile app, a few web apps, company portal, admin portal, data portal, everything. You guys know how this goes.
Love it. As I mentioned, I think we have to have you on for a full show, Victor. But in the meantime, thanks so much for coming on the show. Tell folks how they can get in touch with you, or how they can connect with you.
Yeah,
or where they can
can
follow you
find
on
me.
social.
Yeah. You guys can follow me on X. It's Victor with a K, TJM. You can find me there, and I'm usually really open to answering questions and getting on Zoom calls with people if they need any help. So just reach out.
I forgot to mention that you've been so great about helping other folks learn vibe coding and about what you're doing. So thank you so much for doing that. You've been such an asset.
It's my pleasure, and thanks for having me on, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks. Catch you in the next
Victor.
one.
See you. Bye.
Hey, Vic, how are you?
Hello, how's it going? I'm good. How are you doing?
Good to see you. Welcome back to the show. Everybody, welcome Vic, product designer here at Replit. I'm curious if you had an opportunity to catch some of Victor's interview.
I did. And I also wanted to thank Victor so much for just supporting the community and always helping out our users with questions. It's one of those moments where I truly feel like a lot of the times our users know the nooks and crannies of the tools that we're creating more than us. And it's so fascinating to see how it's being used. And yeah, it was a great session.
That is true. Like after we launch something, I see the examples that people are posting on socials of what they're building. I'm like, I did not know you can do that. Like there's like Andrew, I forget his last name. Forgive me, Andrew, but we launched the animations feature a couple weeks back. And like the examples that he's putting out there are like crazy. Like they're so good. I'm like, I didn't know you could do all of this with this new animation feature. So yeah, you're right. It's always surprising to see how people use the tool and how much further they take it than you would have anticipated.
No, totally. Exactly.
Awesome. So drop your questions on Agent 4 features that you'd like. What's been helpful for Agent 4? Drop it in the chat, and we'll surface them with Vic. But in general, Vic, I just would love to kind of hear your story in terms of like the launch, how it all came together, anything that's been surprising since the launch.
Yeah, totally. It has been just a whirlwind of things. I think I'm still trying to process it all and read everyone's feedback. And there's a ton of amazing stories, just like Victor's, where people are moving a lot faster, collaborating like they have never done before. But obviously, there are also a lot of improvements that we need to make, and I think that's kind of the process, right, of releasing this thing that we've been working on for months. And we, to us it kind of feels like this child, and it's such a I think I've been reflecting a lot this time around, especially on how much of a vulnerable process it is to work on something and have a lot of care towards it and kind of expose it to the world and see how people feel about it. So, with that said, I think I'm just really excited to take it to that next level. I know we've already introduced a lot, but I feel like it was kind of the seedlings, like we've kind of placed the roots of what this thing can grow into. So that's what I'm most excited about now. And yeah, kind of just seeing what people do with this.
Can you talk a little bit about the sort of this conflict that I see with products is like what playing it safe and giving people more of what they expect versus moving towards where we see the industry going or where the puck is going. I feel like we're taking a bet here with Agent 4 introducing Canvas, parallelism. No one else is doing that, but when you see it, you're like, oh yeah, this is like inevitable. This is where everything is going, but making that bet is I think it's pretty challenging, and I think a lot of companies lose the ability to do that. So maybe talk a little bit about your thinking there, like between like giving people more of what they want versus giving them like the next evolution of where vibe coding is going.
Yeah, totally. I think so when I first joined and when I first worked on the Replit agent, we focused a lot on that like initial reliability of your application. We really internally it was a big sort of focus for us to make sure that everyone could come onto Replit and have a working web app. Back then we were primarily focused on web apps, and I would say that is still whenever we make decisions, that's still by far something we evaluate, like, oh, will this thing that we introduce hinder that core experience of building applications, the bread and butter, the thing that we know we're great at, going from idea to app to publishing it in just a matter of minutes. So I guess I want to say that that is still always going to be our focus in making sure that that part is always reliable. And then there's like the other sort of competencies and tools that we want to layer on to this experience. Um, and for more context, I think a lot about education at Replit and educating our users and how do users grow from day one of using Replit to day 30. And I think some of the tools that we introduced are very much so this time around sort of day 20, day 30 tools. I wouldn't, I think it's super fair if you come onto Replit. Let's just say you're extremely new at vibe coding, stick with the main experience. I think creating, your first web app and publishing it is still very magical. And then you'll find yourself, wanting to iterate more on the canvas and see all of these visual explorations, or work on things in parallel and add those new background tasks and take things to the next level. So yeah, I think it hasn't been as much of a trade-off because we're thinking about it as sort of extensible parts of the journey rather than complete overhauls of the initial like core experience. And as we move forward, that'll be at least for myself always something that I think about to make sure that that baseline experience does not degrade or does not get more difficult because of these things that we layer on.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the Paul Graham tweet that he put out once he got a preview from Amjad on Agent 4 about like this is inevitable where vibe coding is going. He's like got a glimpse of the future. And even for myself, like when I first started using Canvas, it was a little bit different, some getting used to. But now it's obvious that I got to use Canvas and use all the different different artifacts on Canvas all in one place. So that's really
Yeah, I
yeah.
was just gonna touch on there really quickly. I think it is inevitable, but knowing that we're extremely passionate about making sure that everyone is brought on to this like evolution of leveraging AI and building with AI. And that means we're going to have people that have never used a canvas surface before. So as much as it is inevitable, I think, if looking at the canvas kind of intimidates you, I would say it's totally okay. I know a lot of the times it's kind of a tool for either engineers or designers in their primary workflows, but if that's something that you're not used to, and it feels like, like, do I need to know how to design, or do I need to know how to navigate all these tools? I just hope that through the experience we make it clear that, it's a way to communicate with the agent and leverage it to your own liking, but it's not a requirement in order to be successful on Replit.
Yeah, and in some way, I think because I've been vibe coding for so long, it's different for me. But I think of someone that's completely new to vibe coding, I almost feel like the canvas experience starting there is a better jumping off point. And as we expand the pool of new people coming into the vibe coding space, which because it's still early, and we're expanding to like less technical folks, less vibe coders, I almost feel like they're gonna welcome that entry point as a jumping off point.
Yeah. I think we'll find out.
Find out.
Yeah, I'm excited to see and find out. It's been particularly interesting showing the canvas to a lot of my friends who are traditionally product designers. They come with like sort of this expectation of what the tool is going to be like and how it's going to be used. And so I think depending on sort of your background and experience, it'll definitely, you'll have sort of different reactions to it when you see it for the first time.
Awesome. Let me bring Reimer on here. And one question I'm sure we're going to get, Vic, is around multi artifacts for pre-agent for.
Oh my gosh.
That's the biggest question everyone's asking. That's
question.
it.
So
Top of
maybe you can give
everyone's
us
mind.
yeah, I get on social all the time, so maybe
I'm
jump on
also
that one.
waiting for that, by the way.
I am also waiting for that.
We're all waiting.
I feel personally responsible because I remember coming onto this live stream a few months ago, and I was saying that this is a feature that's coming when we were talking about the mobile app. And let me just say that it is still something that is coming. We're going to make sure that we're able to support this. We just want to make sure that it is ready and compatible and reliable before we do. But yeah, know that it is on our radar, and we are certainly working on launching this as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty tough to make it backwards compatible on all the projects that have been built on Replit and going through all the different iterations and testing. So that's got to be a Herculean effort for sure.
No, totally.
People also want some alpha. They want to know what you got, like sneak peeks. Is there anything you can give us
What's
directionally?
next? Yeah, what else is
Can you
shipping?
give us a little peek behind the curtain? Like
Oh.
put you on the spot. She's like, she hasn't thought about what she can shimmy around, so we got to put her on the spot here.
I mean, I'm going to be really annoying and give a
Say
very
no.
vague answer, but I think just expect, just know that this is just the beginning. This is the beginning. Expect much more. And both sort of more leapfrog improvements to the experiences, but also I think one of my favorite parts after a big launch like this is to work on a little bit more of the delight and the smaller usability things. And I think all of those really compound together to create a more seamless and holistic experience. So know that that's coming. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I
No.
was totally put you on the spot.
What
And
if-
this one you can probably answer a little easier. How do you approach thinking about a product like this at scale? Right? Like there's so many people who are using this now that have their web apps in production that are now building their mobile apps on this. There's like people's like businesses are starting to be connected to this. So as you start like from a product side, as you're thinking about new features, you talked about like making sure the web app side doesn't regress. Like how do you personally approach that? How do you keep all these moving pieces kind of organized, like, and take that into your product role here?
Yeah, totally. I will kind of go back to the whole thinking about the 30-day user journey here. Um, the reason I love to sort of tie it back to competencies and user education is because Replit is a very unique product in that yes, you could just come on here, create an app, publish it, and that's sort of the extent of what you do. But what we often see, and what I am personally also really excited about, are people creating entire businesses and entire products and entire SaaS tools. And that means that comes traditionally with a lot of growth. Even outside of Replit, let's just say you're building this on your own. You're learning how to design. You're learning how to, figure out your product positioning and values, and how do I actually share this with the world? And so if you want a glimpse of what a product roadmap might be, I think about the product development process, and think about how typical products go from 0 to 1 to 1 to 100. I think for me now, I am thinking a lot about, to your point, not only how we think about things at scale, but how do users take their products from that 1 to 100 point,
Yeah.
and what are the tools to actually support them to do that? So I think about them in that kind of like user journeys and parts of their development process.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect callback to the Buildathon, and what we're trying to do with the Buildathon is essentially take people through that journey of building is a piece of that, but I'm sure you spend a ton of time ahead of that thinking through like, what do we build, right? Because there's like so many things you could build now. And so like figuring out exactly that right thing, or iterating quickly on like these little prototypes. I know even during the, like Agent 4 before the launch, there was a lot of, they call them dogfooding sessions, where we're kind of running through these prototypes. And so like maybe you can help folks think about like that iteration cycle before the build stuff. Is there any like unique advice you could give people? Because I know a lot of times they ask like, well, how do I break this down for the agent, or how do I kind of think about building a product out? So like maybe you have some insights for folks there.
Yeah, totally. Before we had the canvas and all of these other tools, I would, every single Replit event I would go to, I would talk about how underrated plan mode is, and how much I encourage users to just be on plan mode and talk to the agent. Well, there are two things that make the entire planning and sort of ideation part much better on Replit now. Number one, our plan mode, the agent can now take into context of any integration or any connector that you have connected to Replit. So even for myself, as I was working on Agent 4, I would connect it to Linear, I would connect it to Notion, and Replit essentially became my product thought partner, where I would give it a bunch of my ideas, talking to it all the time. And I'm not necessarily building it, I am just talking through the problem, and wanting the agent to sort of be very thorough and go through all the context, and making sure that I'm not missing anything critical. So that's number one. That's something that I would encourage everyone to do. Number two, now you have a visual surface to explore and communicate with the agent. The sort of the canvas is sort of an infinite feature, in that there are probably so many ways to use it that I don't even personally know. The most obvious ones can be, hey, you have a idea or a general sketch of how you want your product to look. Give me, variations and iterations of it. And the agent can use the canvas to sort of plop all of those variations on the canvas and give you a set of explorations. But you could also use it as a traditional sort of wireframing, whiteboard tool, where you can actually be going through various user flows with the agent too, in much lower fidelity. And why the lower fidelity matters is twofold. Number one, it's going to cost you less. It's going to cost you less for the agent to just draw diagrams on this whiteboard and show them to you and verify whether or not this makes sense. But number two, even for yourself, as a designer or a product builder, you should be thinking about that lower fidelity, more like systems level sort of thinking about how your product works before you jump into that high fidelity visual, and you're so distracted by all of these details, you're not even sure if like the mechanics of the thing make sense yet. So yeah, I
I
think
think that's the
That's a great
key.
tip.
That nugget right there is the low fidelity thing.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
like I think a lot of people get really obsessed with the finished idea of a product, or like trying to put the gloss on it before it's ready. And I think what you're talking about is like, hey, make sure the bones are good, make sure the
Mhm.
workflow works. And we kind of encourage this when we do our live deep dives. A lot of times you'll see me like, let's get the feature working, or encourage folks to like get the core thing working, and then think through how you kind of build out from there. And I
Yeah.
think that's probably like the takeaway for folks is a lot of times, you
yeah.
know, people maybe get a bad experience from the agent because they ask for either too much or they don't articulate things properly. And so I think like, you know, like breaking things down into chunks or figuring out how to like get those smaller nuggets organized is really like a big value add when you're thinking about products.
Yes.
Totally. I think that's for us non-designers. I guess that's the difference between UX and UI, right? There's always a slash there when you think about design. The UX is the user experience, and to your point, Vic, you want to map that out, like where people are going to go, where they're going to land, what are they going to experience, and then secondarily to that is okay, what does the design look like? What's the styling, the font, etc. I'm curious when you're prompting agent to build that out. Are you just saying like build out these different elements in a diagram or as a sketch? How, like, what's the prompt that you're feeding into agent to put those on a canvas in that style and just sort of the bare bones type of method?
Yeah, so that method works completely fine as well. If you ask agent to, hey, draw me some diagrams on the canvas for this user experience, the agent will do that. I personally, I am just more biased towards, I honestly always start the agent in plan mode. So I'll always have a chat going. And then I will personally open the canvas. So you're able to manually open the canvas too. You don't have to have the agent like open it for you. So if you click on the top left where the preview is and go into the canvas, I just start drawing personally. I start drawing, I start sort of making that initial diagram. I'm just generally a more visual person. So I'll start off with the visual myself and then get the agent to sort of iterate on that and, point out places I might be missing or point out sort of logic flaws and things like that. Honestly, just like a designer that I would be working with at Replit. So that's kind of how I personally start, but you can start either way for sure.
Yeah, and I it's funny. I stumbled into the other day. I was looking through some old like some of my old art, and I found some really old like sketches. I still start very often. And Manny, I see you all the time with like paper, like just there's still something about that. Again, that low fidelity thing where when you start building stuff and when you start making decisions about design and other things, like a lot of times you lock yourself into things that like may not be the correct decision, or you build complexity on top of something that you're not certain is like the right workflow. And so like, again, thinking through something on paper, thinking through like step one, I want the user to do this first, and then I want them to do this. And then like, don't think about like, what that looks like so much. Think about what is the result I want? What is the outcome I'm looking for? What's this journey I want the user to take? And then you can start like kind of building around that and asking the agent to like, what could this look like? Show me a couple versions of this on the canvas. Like, let's explore 2 different onboarding flows or something like that. And I've really enjoyed that about the canvas is like, okay, I like the output here, but let's add some variation to this, or give me 3 versions of this with, 1, 2, 3 style or whatever little prompts. And like, that's just been a game changer, I think, from Agent 4 to 3 to 4.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
I love that thought, Raimar. Drawing stuff out, taking a snapshot of it, and putting it on my canvas. So like that, I mean, that'd be a great way to get into a flow too, right? Like being on my computer, there's all these distractions. If I just like spend like 30 minutes in advance sketching everything out, thinking about all the different layouts, and then snapping photos of that, putting it in the canvas, and jumping off from that, I think that'd be a great jumping off point. Great tip.
You can even bring in your Figma designs, and like if you're bringing and working with other assets, like bring in screenshots, bring in snapshots, like use the Figma MCP, like bring in your designs. Like you know, like whatever, wherever you're already doing some of this thinking, like just bring it in. The agent will handle that contextually. Like it's so good with multimodal inputs and text and visuals and everything. You can even drop those things on the canvas and talk about it. So you can like draw on top of your UI. Like, I mean, you should really just spend some time exploring and playing with that. And also when you're playing with the canvas, you're not really spending your Replit credits unless you're talking to the agent. So you can play in there and tinker and
That's a great point. Yeah.
Awesome. Vic, thank you so much. Appreciate you stopping by. You're becoming a favorite here with our community. So we're gonna have to continue
to hear from Vic. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So they're like, when's the next segment for Vic? So we're gonna let Vic get back to it, get some rest. Thank you so much, Vic. Everybody follow Vic on socials, and we'll link to her socials on the follow-up email. Anything else you want to say, Vic, before we sign off here?
Send me all the feedback and all of your
People want the plan toggle back. There was comments about they want to know it's a plan or build mode rather than just clicking.
Okay.
So there was a couple comments about that. Yeah.
Well, one last thing. What's the best way to send you feedback? Is that just to post it on X and tag you, Vic?
Honestly, yeah. Post it on X. Tag me. That works great. Show me all your creations, what you're working on. I'm always just excited to see.
Right on.
There you go. Awesome, Vic. Thank you so much for being on the show. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? Caught him mid-yawn, dude. Sorry, we went a little bit late with Vic, but you know, had a lot of comments in the chat here. Yeah. How are you?
Doing great. And Vic is like one of the, you said like it was a favorite on the live stream, also one of the favorites in the company, right? Of like ships incredibly fast, does really high quality stuff. I know Raymar was just bringing up like bringing the plan toggle back. That should be back now. There should be a checkbox next to the plan, so it makes it kind of easier to do that. And so that's very exciting.
Favorite of the company. I think you two would give Vic a run for her money.
That's exactly what we were saying right before this. Like, well, maybe we got to make this a little bit more entertaining.
We got some rock stars here, really. Nick, Cody, take a moment to introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm Cody. So I'm lead field engineer at Replit. And so field engineering is kind of all the technical side of pre and post sales for like enterprise sales. And so like the fundamental job is like, how do we prove value with Replit to the companies that we're selling it to? So before we get in, like, how do we identify like specific use cases with them, get it so that Replit can meet those use cases? Once we get in with the company, hooking it onto all their internal systems, making sure that everything's compliant, making sure that we hook in all of the SSO and the SCIM, making sure that everybody's kind of comfortable with, we're going to give this super powerful tool to all of these non-technical people in the company. Let's make sure that they're doing it in kind of a safe way in accordance with like our engineering standards, all that kind of thing.
And I'm Nick. I've been focused a lot on the post-sales side. So after an enterprise has agreed to join and be part of Replit and use Replit internally, helping them be successful within that with support from the field engineering team.
Awesome. I think a good place to jump off here is to talk about Replit into enterprise. I think a lot of folks would be surprised just the traction that we're getting in enterprise for Replit. Maybe talk a little bit about that. How are enterprises and businesses thinking of tools like Replit as they're kind of moving forward and trying to be more AI native and more AI powered?
Sure. So I'll kind of walk you through the history of how the enterprise motion started here at Replit. So I came on after seeing the first like iteration of the agent. I was like, this is the coolest product of all time. I want to join the team. And when we were coming on, there was no enterprise motion. But it was, hey, with the agent, we're starting to see now some enterprises reaching out because people are building stuff out. They're not just putting their personal problems into Replit and having it build software. They're putting business problems in, having it fix it. And now they're reaching out and they're saying, hey, I launched this thing. It's fixing this problem at our company. We've got 10,000 users. Do you guys have SSO, right? And so for that, I came on as kind of the first sales guy. And so I was sort of doing everything from SDR of like doing outbound and doing all that and kind of generating leads for Replit. And then all the way to like the actual implementation and customer success and everything in between. And the first couple months, this was like basically like a year and a half ago or so, the first couple months was really just that. And then once we had Agent 2 launch, suddenly you saw like an explosion in like the performance of Agent. And it was able to make a lot more internal tools for companies. And so you can think of at companies, like basically everything fundamentally becomes bottlenecked by the engineering org of like, hey, if I want this new internal tool, or if we want these product changes, or we have this specific customer who needs something, everyone's kind of waiting on engineering. What we were seeing with Replit was you give it to everybody else in the company. And then they can start solving a lot of their own problems. They can do their own user testing. They can do their own prototyping. When they're going to engineering, it's with well-defined and refined requests, so that instead of engineering making a POC, giving it back to me, then 2 weeks later, I come back and say, well, it's not really what the customer wanted, right? And like the other way that we started seeing it was kind of the people in the company who were closest to the customer or closest to the problem could start building out solutions for it. And then that was kind of like the next sort of era of like Agent 2 of building out those sort of internal solutions. Then this is when we started expanding the team. Nick came on, we kind of started growing it out to about 20 or so people. This was like kind of back half of last year, with the lead into Agent 3 when we launched all the connectors, was now suddenly in the enterprise context, we have kind of safe and effective ways for you to hook into your internal data sources, build on top of them, kind of say like, hey, instead of like the one data guy at the company who knows how to use the BigQuery or the Databricks or whatever, is kind of everyone is able to start building on top of it. And then now with Agent 4, like it's just absolutely crazy because now we have all these collaboration features, right? Which is just really exploding on the enterprise side, because now you have, instead of just one person kind of owning and working on this one thing, you can have multiple people working on it all at the same time. And they're working on multiple artifacts. And so I'll kind of wrap this and then let Nick finish off. But this multi-artifact thing has just been huge, because when you think about it, if you're working at a company, is that you say, hey, I have to make the initial prototype, but I also have to present it to different stakeholders within the company. Some of those stakeholders are going to prefer it through slides. They're going to prefer it through executive summaries. They're going to prefer it through making like admin dashboards or like data dashboards on top of the prototypes. And so being able to have the multi-artifact within there has just been hugely valuable. And so we've seen a lot of expansion there. So
yeah, I guess the only other thing I would add is Agent 4 was a massive unlock for enterprises. In the one piece that Cody talked about, obviously like the collaboration piece, multiple people building together, working together on either that product that you're envisioning or that new feature, that function, for these internal tools, maybe for a presentation, if you're generating a slide deck, that mobile app that you're experimenting or tinkering with. And so that collaboration piece has not just unlocked like the synergies of working well directly across multiple different artifacts at the same time, but then also having that parallelism, because for most businesses, the most important thing is the speed. Like how quickly can we go to market? How quickly can we outpace our competitors? And the parallelism that we unlocked for enterprises is massive, because now you can have multiple people in one project sending multiple prompts at the same time, ideating really quickly. One subtle thing that I think is actually, we should probably explore this deeper at some later point. But when you start a new task, it actually makes an exact duplicate and basically forks the entire project that you have, which is like a crazy technology for the amount of things that are happening in the background, but allows them to basically have this idea separate from your main version that you can then do this testing, exploration, and tinkering with before you merge it back in. So that speed is the most important thing for enterprises, which is why we see a massive adoption for Replit.
Yeah, I sat in a couple of calls as we were previewing Agent 4 to some enterprise folks, and I was surprised by how much they appreciated the additional collaboration features. And me as an independent like vibe coder, and also like our community, like they're mostly like coding by themselves. So I don't think we fully appreciate how different that is from how people work at enterprise, where you might have 5, 6 people on a project. And so like right out of the gate, that was like their number one thing is like, oh, the fact that I can see that Jenny's working on this and Bill's got this going, I can see their work and I can see it all coming together, and that I can spin up a task and then like maybe pick it up later when I'm back from vacation or something. So like that's the first thing that jumped out at me. Like they like really love like, oh my gosh, this is gonna 10x our collaboration. I love this feature.
yeah. Like a big way that we talk about it, and this is also just kind of culture of sort of like the Replit sales side, is that like we've got a lot of military guys here. And so like me, like I'm ex-Marine Corps, like he's ex-Navy, right? Is that like the way that we talk about it, military side kind of like parallels a lot with the enterprise side, which is absolute versus relative speed, right? Is that when you're working by yourself kind of on your own, is that you can kind of think of it as like absolute basis. Am I moving fast, right? Just compared to me basically. But like within the enterprise context, it's am I moving fast relative to my competitors? And so if you look at it, the way in enterprises, generally the things that are stopping them from moving faster are the friction points of the handoffs between different teams. And so like one of my favorite stories for this is like large telecom company that we were working with is there was a product manager there who was like, hey, I have an idea for basically like on the TVs when they're in people's houses, is that if you're working with like older people, then it's probably shouldn't be like the apps that you're using shouldn't be oriented to the old person. It should be oriented to the person who's helping them, because they're probably the person who's like more technologically fluent, is the person actually turning the TV on and off, that kind of stuff. And so she was like, hey, I want to build out like an experience that's focused on the helper, not the person who actually owns the TV, which is kind of a big change for them. And so she was like, okay, what would it take for me to do this? She got like a quote that this was going to take 2 quarters. And the reason why was because it was, okay, we have to get the product teams aligned. We have to get the engineering teams to do this. We have to put the data people involved, and all of those kind of handoff processes that they were doing was that they would have nice Semper. So for where was I? For them, we're saying like, hey, this is gonna take like 2 quarters just because of all the handoffs of like, you have to work on this, and then the other team has a different priority, so they're gonna be within 2 weeks, all that kind of stuff. Was she just used Replit, and then she made out a first version of herself. Then she did a split test with it where she made like the base experience and the new experience, split tested it herself across just some users that she knew, where she was like, hey, can you try this out for me? Then she was able to test it with like 20, 30 people. Then she said, hey, Replit, make me an analytics dashboard on top of this. She did it, collected the user experience on it. And now she's saying, hey, I have data that supports my assertion that this is going to work properly. And then she said, okay, hey, now I have to present this to my executive leadership. They like to see things in slide decks. Can you turn this into a slide deck for me? And she did this before multi-artifact, but it was one of the like the inspirations for why we ended up going multi-artifact. Because like this, when you're working in the enterprise context, you kind of need all of those different pieces all together. And like I said, is like that absolute versus relative speed is that like, if you are able to kind of make it so the handoffs are not as often and the handoffs are less friction, where you can have like the data guy also go into Replit instead of having to convert it to something else for him to consume, then you can go a lot faster versus your competition who is not doing the same thing.
Totally. That makes sense. And then even for the engineering folks, so like how much easier is it for non-technical people to self-service, create prototypes, build it out, flesh out their idea, share it, get buy-in, and then bring it to the engineering team? And so you got something that's fully thought out, but also you have a Replit project that you can come into. You can see all the code and look at like the bones and everything, and really appreciate what the technical challenges or the effort is going to be to put that into production.
Yeah, I'll take this one. I spend a lot of time with our team after customers have come on to the Replit platform and helping them figure out how does this fit into their own workflow. In many cases, because Replit is such a powerful tool that you can build in any language, any tech stack, we are helping teams basically create these templates right in the actual tech stack they would be using, so that what they build is actually using their actual design system, their actual design components, the code base that we use for actually building out some of the initial pieces of the app that they're trying to build or the feature that they're trying to implement, so that when they hand it over to the engineering team does a quick overview, and then maybe they're doing the last 10 to 20% of integration, rather than totally starting from net scratch, or getting handed over this like massive product requirement document, which is just like a wall of text or purely images. They're getting handed over actual working code that is in their tech stack, that is aligned to their design system, so that integration is super, super seamless, so that, again, that speed is so important for them.
Amazing. Yeah, I think let me bring Raimar here. I'm thinking of the quote that I recently saw from the CEO of Databricks about how they're using Replit, and like his framing was like, hey, we have 20% of the organization that's super technical. They're using their dev tools. And then you have 80% of the organization that's never touched a line of code before. Replit is perfect for them. They can build stuff that's helpful to them, whether it's prototypes, internal tools. They can share them, they can deploy them. And then if they want, they can share that with the engineering team, the more technical people, to implement within the organization. A question that I got here in the chat is around managing large code bases with Replit. So we're working with these organizations. They have a ton of code, ton of people to review it. Talk to us about that process. What does that look like for us?
Yeah, so what I'd say generally, the way that I recommend people do this is you try to define the problem down, right? Which is, if you start by trying to define the problem as like, hey, here's this giant code base, how do I work on it, right? That's like a very large problem, right? Is that generally speaking, like the way that you kind of attack a big problem, like the way that how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? Or like in kind of military context, the way we think of it is like, hey, you want to set isolation, right? Which is that like, hey, if I have 4 guys coming up against 40 guys, right? Like that just, that like troops mismatch is like, doesn't work that way. But if I can set the problem such that at any given time, my 4 guys are only taking on 1 or 2 of those guys because I've set isolation so those other 38 guys can't influence me, then I can like kind of systematically work through the whole problem, right? And so generally speaking, you want to define the problem down. So what does that look like? Is that what we see people do with Replit is you can move production code onto Replit, but what's better to do is to say like, hey, do I actually need all of the giant baggage that's coming along with this? Or as what I'm trying to do, define like a specific surface, right? Of like, instead of, hey, do I need all of the production code when I'm going along with this? Or can I make like a quick clone of specifically this part of the experience, kind of work on that, and then from there grow out? But what I've seen, generally speaking, in the last couple of weeks at least, is that as agents gotten much more performant, and with Agent 4, you can do a lot more stuff. So like what I'm working on right now is I'm like building a full clone of Replit on Replit, right? And then we're going to mark that as a starter template. And so then anyone within our company who wants to prototype a Replit experience, they can immediately start with kind of a working fork on Replit that just has the kind of major big pieces. Does it need all of the tiny little design details within there? Not really, because I'm trying to make a point, or I'm trying to say like, does this argument have legs, or does this prototype have legs, right? And that's kind of another thing that's kind of different within companies, I think, versus the personal side, is that like there's a huge amount of value in just very quickly validating an idea, right? Is like, hey, maybe this isn't the thing that we go to production with, but it's actually super valuable for me to very early on get proof points that this is not going to work, right? And so we see a lot of people doing that, is that they're exploring a lot of stuff and they're using the kind of additional prototypes they're doing, not going all the way to production with it, but to intentionally kind of define it down of like, hey, these are 15 different things that we could possibly do. Instead of taking 6 weeks debating about which one we should do, let's like try all 6, user test those immediately, and immediately start getting feedback with them, right?
Totally amazing. I remember speaking to someone a couple of months back, a product manager. I think he was a CEO actually at a startup, and he said that he's taking prospect calls. He's talking to the prospect, figuring out what the prospect would like in the new feature. He goes and he vibe codes it, goes back and forth with the prospect, and then he gets validation from the prospect. Like, yeah, I would love that. If you had this in your application, I would buy it. Then he sends it to the engineering team, and like, boom, it's in the product a week later versus several months later of going back and forth.
Yeah, that's the like very common thing that we see within enterprises, is like trying to teach the non-technical people. As engineers are very like familiar with how to think about this problem, right? Of like, hey, where do I start, right? And like, what is kind of like the incremental way that I can build up to this? Is that like generally on the enterprise side, they're like, oh, we have 10 million customers. Let's base this assumption off of we're going to service all 10 million of these customers and kind of build from there. But it's like, no, that's generally not the way that you should approach it. Is that you should find one customer and build something that they love. And like from that, you can kind of incrementally build out on top of it. And if you define the problem that way, it's much easier to kind of move quickly. Because if you're starting with, hey, this has to service 10 million customers, suddenly like you can't make a decision until you go consult with like the cloud services team, right? Versus if it's, hey, I have this one specific customer who has this one specific problem that I can prototype a solution for. You do that 10 different times. Now you have kind of the common elements among those 10 customers. And you say, this is kind of a customer persona that this would be a solution for. You take that, and that's the thing that you can scale.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, you know, when we talk to a lot of teams, obviously we just talk through a lot of like the product development lifecycle of like how do they ship faster features, but to put in front of their customers. That massive other use case that we're seeing, arguably just as much explosion, if not more, is these internal tools for these non-technical users. So you can imagine HR teams building out the tools that they need. I mean, I'm going to be speaking at the Transform conference coming up here next week with our chief people officer about the fact that they built their own HR tools because some of these HR systems that exist aren't actually suiting their needs that they have. And, you know, many of the needs are custom and boutique and fit exactly for our own company. And so we'll be talking about that a lot more in a minute. So aside from HR teams, we're seeing IT teams building their own tools. Obviously, they're technical enough, but in many cases, they're not engineers. They're managing all of these different systems and either directly integrating it. And then you have finance teams. You know, they're dealing with, as an example, dealing with all these different invoices from 300 different customers. They're sending them all to different places. They needed a tool to centralize that, but then to put it in the exact proper format, even though the invoices are all in different PDF formats and coming in docs and signatures are all over the place. So the explosion for these internal teams and equipping non-technical users to finally build the tool that they always wish they had, rather than it living in some, you know, spreadsheet somewhere, or, you know, your tool that you currently have is maybe half-baked, but also costing you tens of thousands of dollars and like not exactly doing what you're hoping for, or doesn't directly integrate into your systems.
Yeah.
That's the massive other use case we're helping.
Yeah,
people
this is
with.
a kind of specific enterprise problem of that, because when you're a personal user, you get to choose the software that you want to use, right? As opposed to when you're in the enterprise context, it's you have to use the tools that are approved for you to use. And generally the person doing those approvals is not the end user of the tool. And so like this is how, like when I first came onto Replit, it was because I was like back when I was an infantry officer in the Marine Corps, it was like the way that we were doing lots of stuff internally was that we were just like organizing things through Excel sheets, right? And the reason why was because that was the thing that we were allowed to do. But like, and so we were doing stuff of like, hey, we're planning like, like, hey, we're going to like fly from here to here using Ospreys, and we needed like a system for figuring out like what is on like what different loadouts and what people are on what birds at what given time. Like the way we do that was literally write it down on pieces of paper and say like, hey, there's like 16 Marines. These are the 16 Marines, and this is the weapons that they have, and like all of the different stuff that we have to keep account of. And like you take the piece of paper, you hand it to the guy, he gets on the bird, like then he goes, then he comes back. And
Don't lose this.
Yeah, right? There's like no way to. And so I was using Replit for building kind of just like point solutions for myself, because like, hey, I am the one close to this problem. Like trying to explain this problem to somebody who doesn't actually have to do this themselves is very, very difficult. And when they try to buy software or when they try to make something for you that they don't understand themselves, then I love that we got a lot of Marines on here. So for what we got,
Where are Navy folks? For Nick,
Yeah,
where are Navy
yeah,
folks in the chat?
yeah. So when you try to get the people who are not going to be the end users of the software to build the software or buy the software, they're not actually going to solve the problem, right? They're going to do it in an inferior way, or they just won't solve it at all. Versus when you have the person who is closest to the problem, or the person who will be using the software at the end, then they can start building out the solution. And then maybe they don't go all the way with it, right? But now you can make an informed decision. So we see this a lot in the enterprise too, is that like, hey, before we go buy something, let's try to build it ourselves. And maybe we don't go all the way, but now when we like give it to the procurement guy so that he can kind of go figure out what software you should buy for this, is it shaped like this? Does it actually solve this problem? And we can say we spent like $500 making this ourselves. When they give us like a $20,000 quote for this or whatever, we say like, hey, we know that this is not worth, like it should not be paying that much. And it gives them ammo for when they're trying to do that. So not even just like building the stuff yourself, but equipping other people within the company to make better business decisions.
There are a few massive unforeseen costs that come from trying to ask somebody to build an internal tool for you or to procure something externally. Is one, what Cody was talking about, of like the misalignment. And you ask an engineer, hey, can you build this thing for me? Here's exactly what I want to do. And then you end up with this unforeseen cost of the massive time you have to do this back and forth and months of development to ultimately, if somebody can't communicate their idea, maybe that gets lost in translation. So one, that major piece of like the time you spent trying to get it to your final end state is lost when you have that extra piece of back and forth.
Yeah.
And then two, the unforeseen cost of pulling the engineer off of whatever their other task is. So if they're already on something that's exceptionally high priority, but for whatever reason you've like disrupted what they're doing, that engineer is now no longer working on that other major task that you can then have them dedicated to resolving this massive issue or the next major feature that's going to unlock millions of dollars in revenue. So those are some like two massive unforeseen costs on the enterprise side for if you're ever trying to do some of this internal development that we're helping people solve and basically avoid.
I think this is probably one of the huge unlocks of vibe coding that people don't see right now, is like how this is being actually implemented into the enterprise. So I think this is an interesting take for folks, because a lot of people think like, oh, vibe code is chaotic, it's not safe, it's whatever. But when you put it on enterprise rails, you give people read-only access to like big data lakes that already exist. We've done demos with BigQuery last week. Many you've done Snowflake and Databricks and some of these other places where like, again, you can build on these rails and kind of be protected and open this up to the enterprise. Question for both you, Nick and Cody. You both sound fairly technical, right? And I'm assuming that has evolved in your role. Did you start technical? How have you learned? Like you kind of said the same thing that Vic was saying, is like low fidelity, right? Break it up into chunks, kind of isolate things. How have you like honed those skills, if you will, coming from your military backgrounds into more technical roles and now kind of advising enterprises on how to implement some of this like technology at a high level? How have you kind of managed that progression, like understanding more of the tech stack and kind of getting deeper and deeper technical to do your job well? I guess you need to know a little bit of that, right?
Yeah, I can take a first pass at this. I mean, I did study some technical stuff for my undergrad, but I will say in my most recent case, when you're building some complex software, there's like an unlimited amount of things that you need to learn. But in today's day and age, you actually don't need to. When in most cases, when I'm having Replit build something and I'm like, okay, how does this work? I want to understand how are all these things laid out. I'm actually using Replit to then teach me these things. So I'm directly asking it in plan mode, saying, hey, like, what does the system architecture diagram look like? How are these different pieces interacting? ELI 5, explain like I'm 5. Like, how does this all work? And then, as an example, I was trying to show somebody like some of the system architecture diagrams, and they're like, what the heck is this drizzle ORM? And I was like, oh, it's the agent that. And so I said, what is drizzle ORM? And it kind of gave a little bit of a technical answer. And then I said, explain like I'm 5 what the heck drizzle ORM is. And so agent is actually becoming the way that I'm learning a lot of this like tech stack, the new tools that are coming out. When I see a new like GitHub repository on the internet, and this new tool that maybe is open source, I just go into Replit agent in plan mode from the very beginning, and I say, drop a link to whatever that website is and say, tell me about this tool, tell me about this app, explain like I'm 5. And then in many cases, I'm also going into the canvas and then asking it to lay out in a visual format what the system architecture diagram looks like. Like, how are these different parts communicating? How are they interacting? And so actually my learning curve has drastically, actually, I don't know if increase or decrease is right. I'm learning way faster now because I'm asking Replit the questions, even around like, what's my app doing? How are these things connected? What data is it accessing? How are things set up as a way to kind of teach myself?
Yeah, and it sounds like a throughput in there, just real quick, is the vocabulary. And we've talked about this a number of times on the streams. It's like learning the language of the technology. You maybe don't have to understand all of the processes, but like you said, drizzle, it's like, oh, that's something with the database that should connect, and you can ask. And like, I don't really know what it does. Like we talked about SQL the other day, and I was killing myself because it's like we gave this really rudimentary overview. I'm like, oh, if an actual technical person like listened to me explain SQL, they're like, like they would have just like punched the screen. And so it's like, I know SQL can do a lot of other things, but in the context of this, it's like, I just need this little bucket to like talk to the agent, right? Like ask agent for it should be like a marketing campaign for us. It's like, I like that as an approach, right? Just ask the agent, have it teach you as you go.
Yeah, and I would say to that point, it's like, in many cases, everyone starts from nothing, right? Like, when you're born, you literally have no knowledge about anything, and everything along the journey you have to learn. And in most cases, the best way to learn is through doing, through that building experience, having a project, building something. Unfortunately, most of the learning comes from the failures as well. So when you hit that roadblock and you're like, why is this not exactly what I want? And then you just keep, kind of like having that resilient attitude of like, hey, I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to figure this out. We're going to figure out the right approach, get it just right. And oftentimes it takes some tinkering and back and forth on it to get it into like its final end state. In most cases, my approach to kind of like getting it just right and thinking through these things, not to defer back to plan mode again, but that is often the solution where I'll be chatting through saying, hey, this is the type of experience I want. Sometimes I'll even ask agent to ask me questions to kind of like pull the idea out of me because maybe I'm like not doing a good enough job communicating to it, which, in some cases is my own skill issue than like me blaming the agent. And so I ask agent to kind of like pull out and ask me the right questions to help me like flesh out what is my actual idea. And then we'll have it kind of all fleshed out. And then I'll say, okay, please go build this. And now I can say, build this in the background, and I can have it as a parallel task that's, happening while I continue to chat with it.
One thing I wanted to call out is that you can also chat with your connectors with agent, which has been a huge unlock for me. I've got to do partner streams like every week with a new platform, Databricks, Snowflake, etc. And so I've got to get familiar with their platform too. And the way that I do that is I connect it to, in Replit agent, and then I have Replit agent walk me through what's available on that platform, what I can do, how do I set things up, permissions, things like that. So also helping me understand other processes through the connectors as well.
I think that's an underrated learning tool, is just asking the AI and learning from this. I think a lot of times, and we talked about this with Victor at the beginning of the stream, where it's like, he said, code dyslexic, right? And I think what that means is like, you just don't, like I tried a bunch of times too to learn in boot camps and never really like picked up the concepts of code. But the more I work with these tools and the more I'm like going back and forth between agent and maybe I jump into the code file a little bit, I understand kind of what's happening, especially in the earlier days where you had to like monitor the agent a lot more closely. And you start learning a little bit more about these technical concepts. And then I think as you want to build more complicated things, or if you want to expand more stuff, you have to go and kind of like learn about what is this thing I want to build, what's required for that, and then again learn the language to go ask the agent the specific things you want, and then you'll get better outcomes from those things. So
And I'll say the one piece of that is missing in some of the other AI tools is they don't have the proper context for the thing that you're building, right? Like if you try to connect this to Databricks, or you try to have this app that you're building, and then you go to some other tool and be like, what's going on with my app? Why is it broken? Why is it not working? It's going to be like, I don't know. Tell me what's your app do? You know, it doesn't know. It has no clue how all the inner workings are configured, what's going on with the database in the background, what's the schema look like, where's data getting sent and where is it getting pulled. It just doesn't have that awareness. And so Replit agent is able to go through your entire code base, understand the database, what's going on in the background, and then it can tell you exactly what's wrong and what's going on. And in many cases, I'm just taking screenshots of an error and then providing it back to the agent.
that's a super good point. I know a lot of people like to go use other AI tools, and they'll like ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever out of that context window you just mentioned, how do I build this? And then they might take those instructions back into the app, and that could conflict with what the agent, has already set up, or again, it doesn't have the same stack, or it's thinking about a totally different type of implementation because it doesn't have the guts of your project in its brain. So that's such a, even, people have talked about using plan mode. I think you, Manny, were talking about just going in and almost chatting with it like it's your GPT now, but it has the context of the project, or maybe it was somebody from the community. I don't know. But I remember somebody talking about this now. They're like, I don't go to GPT or Claude anymore. I come to agent, I go into plan mode, and it has the frame of context of this project. And you can just, again, query it, ask questions, plan out features, or just, decide, hey, what's going on here, right? Like you could import a code base from anywhere and do the same thing. It doesn't just have to be your code base. So, yeah.
Shifting gears a little bit, guys, I'd love to hear from you, because I hear this often. Like, I started my vibe coding journey in some other platform. I couldn't get into production. I couldn't scale. Now I'm here at Replit. I gotta feel like it's like that's gotta be like 10x. That's gotta be the 10x the sentiment when it comes to enterprise. Can you talk a little bit about some of the underlying infrastructure that enterprises have been appreciating about Replit? Because it's like it's a different level, right? When you're going from personal projects to enterprise grade systems, you need more to support that.
Yeah, so we have importers for all of the other vibe coding tools, and this is like a kind of difference between a lot of the like competition. Like not exactly competition, and I'll just explain why. But and then there's us, right? Is that like for them, it's like, hey, it's a simple interface because it's a simple tool. There's not a lot going on under the hood, right? Is that you're like slapping together a bunch of third-party services, calling it a product, right? And then on the Replit side, like our kind of big challenge that we're always working on is it's a deeply complex tool that does a lot of stuff under the hood for you. How do you simplify that down for a non-technical person to be able to properly take advantage of and consume? And so for us, like we kind of do that all the time. Is that like other competitor tools, we view them as kind of like top of funnel for us, right? Is that like, hey, like they can teach someone like the initial 5 minutes of vibe coding, but then they hit an upper limit, and then they take it, they bring it into Replit, and then they can continue working on it there, right? And so like for us, like we had this policy like last year on the sales team where it was like, we had a lot of people bring up a lot of competitors about marketing, those kinds of things. And they were like, well, how do you compare to those other guys? And like, we would just kind of have a standing policy of like, hey, like, I'll just pay for you to do a month of like actually using that tool. But I need you to try to use it in a serious capacity, right? I don't want you to just like drop a prompt in, do a landing page, like really try to use this for your business problem. And I'll pay for that. And that'll be kind of like your trial for like the first part. And then we'll take it, import it into Replit, and then you can continue working on it there. And then like that was actually like a super successful process because it kind of addresses a lot of the sort of marketing differences. But then it's also like, hey, like now that you take it, you move into Replit, you see how much further that you can go, is that you can kind of immediately prove value for it, right? Kind of 2 points I wanted to make just about like the things that Nick was talking about and what we were talking about earlier is that like the thing to really keep in mind when you're working well on a project is that like action produces information, right? Is that like there's a lot of people who are kind of paralyzed before they start working. And it's like you really just need to start doing something, right? And like by doing something, you will produce more information that lets you make better refinements down there. And right, and because for us, we have rollbacks, we have like a totally atomic environment. You can kind of freely experiment. It doesn't really cost you anything. It's like a couple tokens or whatever, right? But it's like it's a little bit of credit to do it. but like you learn much faster by doing that. And that's something that we've seen on our side. Like if like Nick is like the #2 user on Replit, right? Like
globally.
Yes. Like I'm like,
hey, we're gonna have to check the Buildathon charts on that one. We're gonna have to check the charts.
Yeah, so I'm like
real-time fact check, fact check, dude.
Yep. And so you can go down the list basically of everybody at Replit on the sales team, and it's like the people that use it more are better at their job, right? And so like, and this is kind of a thing that one of the reasons why I specifically wanted to come work at Replit was because like one of the reasons why I joined the Marine Corps specifically as opposed to the other services, not to say anything bad about the Navy, is that there's a philosophy in the Marine Corps of every Marine or rifleman, right? Which is that like, hey, regardless of what you do, like fundamentally this organization exists because there's like an 18-year-old with a couple other 18-year-olds who's gonna be jumping in a hole. That's why you're here. And you have to understand that guy's job and what you do to support that guy, right? And so like, this is like, you see it everywhere within the Marine Corps versus the other services where it's like, hey, if you look at the close air support that pilots are able to do versus like on the Navy side or whatever, specifically when it comes to close air support, which is, hey, we're flying low over like infantry guys, is that on the Navy side, it's like the only difference between their training pipelines is that the Navy pilots, they don't go to the basic school versus the Marine Corps guys do go to the basic school where they spend 6 months learning to be a provisional rifle platoon commander. And so they deeply understand the language and how to talk and what's actually happening on the ground, right? Versus when people don't. And that's the thing that we're seeing with Replit, basically, where it's like everybody in the company becomes a builder. And so now, even if you're not actually building all this stuff yourself, and maybe you're not doing production code and stuff, it's going to make you better at working with the engineering teams, right? Which is, if you think of a software company, fundamentally, everybody else is kind of in a support role around those engineers who are shipping product, right? And so that's the thing where once you start using Replit with everyone else in the company, even if like the things that you're building are not the things that are going all the way to production, it's going to make you better at your job and better able to communicate and support the engineers who are going to be like shipping the production code.
Every single organization within Replit as a company is using Replit for the finance team, the recruiting team, the marketing team, the entire sales team. Dangerously, the sales team has been allowed to use Replit an unlimited amount.
Let's go. It's one of the perks of being here, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the biggest perk.
And it's unlocked our own speed of like us building the things that we need to either communicate complex topics or to even understand what users are doing. So as an example, big data or BigQuery connector, we've dangerously equipped our sales team with access to the BigQuery connector. And we're just running all of these questions through Replit Agent for us to just tell us, hey, what's going on with this data? How many customers are signing up on XYZ thing through this channel and this XYZ channel? Anyway, we're asking all of our questions to our massive data repositories across all of them to kind of, instead of us having to go to the engineering team and say, hey, can you please pull this data for me? They're like, oh, you can just go do this yourself. Like, I have to build this thing and
get it in like in a spreadsheet or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like we've got two taglines for Agent 5. Replit, just ask Replit Agent. And then like Replit, everybody a builder.
Yep.
So
well, I mean, I think that's already the case now. That's already the case now. Everybody is a builder. And you know, like when we talk to these companies, that's really the future of these like large enterprises is every single company needs to have every person being a builder, because that is the future of how do you move a company exceptionally fast and not waiting for somebody else. Like, how do you just move at some light speed? And the way that companies will win is everybody is a builder in their company, which is why when companies come, or when we're talking to these large enterprises, they say, oh my gosh, you guys are shipping features so crazy fast. How many people are in Replit? And we say the number and they're like, that is crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like the kind of like back to some of like the military analogies around this, right? Is like there's two ways that you can win, right? Is like one of them is that you can destroy the competition. The other one is you can break their will to actually try to compete with you, right? And it's like the thing that we see with a lot of companies with Replit is that they're shipping so fast that their competition is scared, right? Is like, hey, like you're telling me that the reward for me trying to compete with you is that I'm going to have to work weekends, work all this other stuff, work so hard. I'm going to work harder than I ever will. And 6 weeks after that, you're still going to ship faster than me. It's like, I don't even want to compete at this point, right? And so that's been one of the fun things that we've seen. It's like some of these kind of larger businesses that are kind of like a little bit slow is that once you equip them with AI, they just go much faster than their competition. And so like some of the fun ones that we have are like, there's like a paint shop in like the Midwest. And I was talking with the guy who runs that and he's just like, hey, like none of my competition has any web presence at all. If you go on Google, if you go on ChatGPT and try to buy paint anywhere in the Midwest, you're ending up on my thing, right? And anybody who wants to compete with me, that's what they're competing with, right? Is like they get really motivated when they start using it.
And we're even going
tagline number 3: destroy your competitors' will to compete.
I mean, you know, it's
five,
I mean,
boys. Marketing plan coming together. Agent 5.
you joke about it, but maybe Cody and I are a little intense, which is probably why we're on the enterprise team, because it's cutthroat out there. These companies need to win.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about at stake is not like tens of hundreds of dollars. We're talking about millions, and for some companies, billions of dollars that are at stake if they lose a massive contract or if they
And
don't
people's
win.
jobs.
And absolutely. On top of that, and again, it's not decreasing roles. It's about equipping these people who are already very productive and who already know their problems directly and intimately because they've been at these companies for so long. They just need to be unleashed to then go and solve their problems directly.
I think this is one of the
like very specific one is we have a customer, Hexaware, and like this is what they did with their sales teams was they were like, hey, we used to have a 2-week lead time anytime there was an opportunity to go talk with a company about something, because we had to wait for the engineers to go make the demos or like the other people to go make the slides, all this kind of stuff. And they're like, hey, the standard now is you see an opportunity, you hop on the plane, you vibe code on the plane, you get there live, and then you give the pitch before your competition has even decided whether or not they should approach the opportunity, right? And so you can just move so much faster.
They're literally doing it in the taxi cabs with the Replit app on their phone. They're like, vibe code this, you know, whatever tool that they need to present.
Yep.
I think this is probably something that folks that are not kind of directly involved in these decisions are underestimating right now, is the speed at which things are moving and kind of how quickly that expected output is like advancing. And you almost see this big land grab. I mean, we see it in the AI space, just generally. You see like the, you know, all these big companies kind of just trying to buy market share. And it's like an all out competition right now for like the collective intelligence of the universe, right? It is like people dismiss it and they're like, oh, it's just an AI thing. No. Like literally global, like nation states are fighting over who's going to own the brain of the earth. But at a smaller scale, and these enterprises, they're like, who's going to own the brain of this industry, of this, you know, of whatever this market segment we're in. And again, that speed to market and giving the team the unlock. One of the biggest lockups over the last, you know, since code has been around is that like there's always this technical hurdle for the marketing team, for the sales team, for HR to like go pull and create their own dashboards, like you guys are talking about all these enterprise use cases. But now, again, you can do that with Replit on rails, you know, like where you're like kind of putting it on these enterprise rails, right? Or these guardrails where it's like, hey, you have these enterprise level single sign-on kind of privacy protections in place already. If we can now put this sandbox in there where with those protections, you can also have access to like the cutting edge tools, it becomes like a really compelling way to just introduce this technology to your team at scale. And again, what happens out of that? Like, who knows what eager beaver person sitting in a department that like has all these great ideas that's always been blocked by trying to get some technical person off of working on main product to come and build their thing. Now that person can just go and run. Like, I don't think we understand the little unlocks that are going to happen inside of these industries as whole departments just get sprouted up out of these efficiencies.
Yeah, I think that's a major piece to touch on, which is like Replit transcends industries where it is unlocking every single sector you can imagine, because every team needs some sort of digital solution across every single organization within their own company. As one example, one of the companies I first recently closed when I joined the team is actually this manufacturing company. And they said, hey, we want to use Replit to code our CNC machines for like literally them cutting out pieces of metal using Replit. Can Replit build that for us? And I just prompted it and it taught itself how to program a CNC machine. And then the manufacturing guys were like, wait, this is crazy. Yeah, we're going to buy a ton, please.
It's like Neo in the Matrix. You're just, you know, like, I know how to fly a helicopter now. It's like, well, not really, but the agent might, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, basically, and like, we're going to teach them how to create an agent skill for them to kind of make sure that things are all aligned directly with them programming these CNC machines so that it all kind of like aligns perfectly. But I think the major piece that you're touching on here is like, when we hand this over to enterprises, it has all the features and security that they need to properly contain this, to make sure things are not communicating externally, to make sure things are all private, only accessible to the team. We're intentionally have all of the features that enterprises need now, and then we're shipping features as quickly as they get requested to us to then put out there to continue to build in all of the additional functionality that enterprises need.
Yeah, like the way we kind of try to talk about it is that like Replit, like the experience we're going for is that it needs to just work, right? You have to put your natural language prompt in, and then we do all the batteries included, everything to just make it work, right? That's a very different problem on the enterprise versus the consumer side, right? Because on the enterprise, you have all of these blockers in the place, right? And so it's like, okay, can we get the product to a point where we have all of the integrations done, all of the security stuff on the side or whatever, so that the person can just really be creative and focus on the idea, as opposed to, oh, here's this blocker. Now there's this blocker. Now I have to go talk to this guy. Now I have to go talk to this guy. Right?
Yeah. And Replit teach me Kung Fu. People want to know.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
Probably.
You could probably build an app that will teach you Kung Fu. Like we
Watch
did.
this.
Yeah. Well, somebody built during our mobile build-a-thon, somebody built like a boxing coach that like watched your stance and your, like gave you advice. Like, I don't know, maybe it could teach you.
Somebody built an app to help you count push-ups, and Rymar got up to like 4 push-ups on the app.
You guys are talking shit. You just want to see me do more push-ups.
He's working on getting up to 6, but
I'm trying to get to 5 push-ups. Maybe we'll get to 5.
Goal for Rymar.
Maybe the agent can teach me.
Take these physical tests in the military, and we used to do a lot of push-ups.
Yeah.
We could have a push-up competition and see Manny if you want.
Let's do it. All right, I got to prep. When is that? Next time I'm in the office. I got to get going. I'm imagining that like not everybody's had the same uniform experience that is trying to be more AI native and AI driven. So I guess I'm wondering, like, as you've seen the different accounts you've come across and supported, like the folks that are like just going full steam and like getting all the value from all these AI tools versus the companies that are maybe floundering a little bit, not like really getting it going. Is there like some common differences, some common attributes that you're seeing with the folks that are really winning with AI right now?
I'd say kind of the biggest one is that, and this is kind of just like, I try to view all these problems as sort of like, hey, how do we frame this problem in a way that like we can do something about it? Is that like most of it is kind of like my field engineering team focused of like the things that are blocking them from going further is like getting through all of the compliance and the data residency and those kinds of hurdles and getting the people comfortable with it, right? And so like the biggest one generally is like the companies that have everything on-prem or they don't have a big cloud presence and those kinds of things is like Replit is a cloud-based platform, and like all of the best agents and all of the best kind of AI tooling is all cloud-based. And so I'd say that's kind of like the biggest hurdle is like the people who are still in the world of like everything has to be on-prem, nothing is allowed to kind of go out, like those kinds of things, they're having a harder time of moving faster with it, right? Because if you're not allowed to have any of your data or not allowed to have anything go over there, then you can only sort of use Replit for sort of net new things that don't touch anything internally. And so that kind of gets harder, but then that's mostly just my team of like working with them to figure out like, hey, can we single tenant for you? Can we VPC peer? Like if we set it up with static IPs, if we add these to audit logs, like what can we do to get you guys comfortable with like people doing this? And what safeguards can we put in place such that like the way that we kind of describe it sometimes is like with the difference between like Replit versus like a lot of other stuff is that it's like Minecraft where like, hey, the agent is kind of like your pickaxe, but then we're also creating this Minecraft world around you, right? And so like, what are the rules around this Minecraft world? And how can we make it so that you can, within the Minecraft world, kind of wave the pickaxe wherever you want versus, and like kind of pre-position all of the resources, the place where you just like randomly swing your pickaxe, you get your database, right? Randomly swing your pickaxe, you get connected to like the proper data sources that you were asking about, right? And so like, how do we create that sandbox? And that sandbox is different for every company, right? And so that's the one, it does take a lot of kind of like doing the things that don't scale. Like I literally just came back from like yesterday, I did a red eye to Philadelphia, and then I stayed there for like 7 hours, and then I did a red eye back because it's like, hey, this is something where you do need to like work with these companies and just figure out like, hey, this is the thing that they need to like get comfortable with doing this stuff where you can be like, I hate like this person's kind of blocking this something. If I go to a in-person meeting, do the demo, show all these things, address all of the concerns, can we kind of move faster on this stuff?
And I would say the other piece to what Cody's talking about too is like, obviously infrastructure is such an important piece for companies, and we're nailing that because you'd be shocked at the massive financial companies that you would think is the most regulated pieces of industry, especially in the US, and they're using Replit. We can't name them openly, but they're massive financial institutions. To include, we have some governments that are both international and within the US that are using Replit. And obviously we have become trusted partners with them for building the solutions that they need on Replit. Now, the next major piece to your broader question, Manny, is like, how do you really get teams moving faster, and how do they like maximize Replit? So obviously, once we have the infrastructure in place and we get them going, the next major piece is like helping them understand and kind of like improve and enable their teams for how do I actually approach this? How do I get into, in many cases, we have to help them transform their organization from being purely consumers of like, hey, here's the tool you're going to use, to then being in the mindset of I'm a builder now. I can create the thing that I need. And so the things that we often do is we go into a company, we'll then organize a hackathon or run many training sessions until the entire team has that awareness of you are now a builder. Go build the things that you need to. And so that's one of the ways that we're not just like equipping the teams, but we're like actually doing like I guess I just realized this enterprise-wide transformations from like a mindset perspective.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how you deal with compliance in those instances with these big clients? Like people in the comments are asking about compliance, like certifications if you're dealing with big projects like SOC 2. Is any of that stuff like, or is this just like YOLO, like ship it?
No. So this is again like a difference between like Replit and basically every other competitor is that like Replit's been around for like 10 years. Like this is I wear this special for you guys today. This is like a 6-year-old Replit shirt. This is like one of the like,
somebody just asked us to flip your camera actually so it could be reversed so it's not
yeah. So it says like ship it done already. Yeah, right. And so
vintage.
Replit's been around for a while, and this is like we've made a lot of really big infrastructure bets that are now coming to fruition. So like for example, for Agent 4, right? Like this is something that nobody else can do, and like the thing that we're taking advantage of is something that we've been investing in for maybe like 4 years at this point, which is like this like internally we call it like bottomless storage, but it's this like margarine system that we call it, and that it's that you can kind of freely fork the file system, this copy on write file system that we use, right? This is the thing, like the magic behind how Agent 4 is able to, when you're running agents in parallel, it's also forking the file system, right? So they can kind of that isolated sandbox again, that you can kind of have each task working in. That was not just something that is like, hey, we sat down and like vibe coded this over the course of 2 weeks, right? That was like a massive infrastructure bet by the whole company that has started like 4 years ago. And that is like, was kind of ready for this sort of primetime thing like a couple months ago, but it was the models were not good enough at doing merge conflicts in order to kind of release it. But like we have a lot of big infrastructure bets that we are waiting for the model's performance to catch up to so that we can have it that the models can handle using this very complex and deep infrastructure that we have for non-technical people, right? And so for Replit, like this is the thing, whenever you talk to Amjad about this, like he always brings this up, is that like this, like Replit's been around for like 10 years. We've been making very large infrastructure bets for these things, like going heavy on Google Cloud, now going heavy on Azure, right? Is that like actually doing this stuff. And then you kind of talk to anybody else and they're like, oh, hey, we're kind of cobbling together a bunch of third-party services. It's not like real core infrastructure. So for us, like what we can do is say, like, hey, we can take all of your stuff, put it in like isolated tenant, VPC or like all the sort of compliance stuff that companies are looking for. Replit is really, really good answers for because of really big bets that the team made years ago.
And the amount of pain that we go through, and Scott Kennedy, our VP of engineering, tweeted this yesterday, which is like we go through a SOC 2 audit on a recurring basis, and they audited every MDM config, every device configuration, destruction certificate, all of the patched vulnerabilities, and it's an exceptionally painful process. But one of the things that, Amjad, and one of the reasons he's such a visionary is the company, one of the company values is that we seek pain. Like we will go after the most painful thing because in many cases we know that is probably the most worthwhile thing that we should need to spend our time and energy on. And compliance was a major piece of that. So we devote an exceptional amount of time and energy, one, to not just making sure that the infrastructure is compliant, but then also as we're equipping teams that they feel comfortable with how you're basically allowing all these people to build things, but with the right guardrails in place.
Yeah.
100%. Francisco joked earlier that it should be don't wait for pain to find you, because pain will eventually find you here at Replit. You don't have to go seek it out. Question here from Chris around UK.
Time out. We got to answer this.
Yes. So now with enterprises, we can do European hosting for deployments. And so that's something that Chris just brought that one up. We can do that now. So that's something, if anyone's interested in
people asking about that one.
Breaking news. Breaking news here, folks. Yeah, we have a ton of folks from the UK, ton of folks from Europe, so they're gonna be happy to see that. Do we have like an official announcement on that yet that we can share, or is that something that's coming out?
Well, I just
Breaking
did
news.
it.
Damn, breaking news. Sorry.
Yeah, so
Some
this
real
is
marketing though.
on Replit Enterprise today is that we can configure it so that when you do your hosting, that is European based, and so that is kind of new change that we have on that side. But
Hit
this
that
is again
bullhorn.
this is like one of those things where like this is kind of a thing on the Replit side. Is yep.
Let's go.
This is one of the things on the Replit side where it's like, yes, we have gotten these requests along for like a long time. There's a correct way to do it and an incorrect way to do it, right? Like one of the incorrect ways to do it is to just like spin up like, hey, some boxes over there, but then like the logs are still coming back to our side, right? And say like, oh, hey, it's hosted here, but like the data residency aren't doing it. Is like, this is the thing within Replit is that like when we do these big infrastructure bets, we do them correctly so that it's not just like everybody on the personal side takes advantage of all of this, but then also on the enterprise side, it's the same thing. Like this is something Scott brings up all the time is like one of the big things that we do on Replit that like basically nobody else does is that when you do your deployments, you get a dedicated, segregated GCP billing project, right? Which is anybody who knows anything about GCP, like the infrastructure for doing that is absolutely insane. Like to my knowledge, insofar as anyone
Google
else does
Cloud, right? GCP.
Yeah, so it's a segregated GCP project.
Right, but to just tell people what GCP is, you're throwing lingo
yeah,
there.
Google Cloud. And so, so Google Cloud is that you get a segregated GCP project, right? So segregated off, not shared with anyone else as you're doing those things on the deployments, right? That's something like you guys take advantage of on the personal side, where every single customer has their own segregated GCP project. And then, but this is the reason why they built that is because that's the kind of standards that you want on the enterprise side. So even if you're using on the personal side, you're taking advantage of a lot of the things that are also enterprise grade.
Yeah.
I got a question for the deals that we're closing here live on the stream. Who gets credit for that? Is that me and Reimer or you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you. So for anybody who does want to like come like work at Replit or whatever, there's like a couple of different ways that we work, right? So like on our enterprise sales team is like we do have kind of the standard like account execs, account managers who kind of own different accounts. On the field engineering side, we work a little bit differently. So we kind of flex across all the different accounts, right? And so I think for this one, it would probably be Nick gets to understand.
I'll take it.
I'll
Give us some credit, man.
Yeah, drop some extra credit. We already have infinite free credit, right? So,
awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to get the word on that because we've been getting so many questions on that. Great.
By the way,
we have a new.
People are really interested in seeing this leaderboard. They have not forgotten this.
Oh.
And if you guys didn't see last week, I did build. Speaking of access to BigQuery, so we have this Replitopolis thing that that like literally is a filterable leaderboard. So tune in Tuesday. We're gonna let people log into that, and they'll be able to like go find themselves and see their village and what they're actually building. And it's gonna be a fun like public leaderboard for folks that are in the Buildathon to kind of get access to. So the internal leaderboard would also be good for dog fooding. I think that'll be a fun little internal competition to see who's got the biggest building in there.
Awesome. Well, I think we have a new favorite segment for the streams for the chat here. We're gonna have to have you guys back on.
I want to point out real quick though, you see how casual, like both Cody and Nick are, and like the diversity of the crew. Like I think there's like one of the things I think Replit really gets right. And I've been talking to a lot of people about this is like a lot of companies talk about like diversity when they're hiring. And what I think they often mean is like, hey, if you took a photo of our staff, it would look like a Crayola box or something, but everyone kind of thinks the same way. At Replit, you have people coming from all over, military, the Midwest, Ivy Leagues, college dropouts, like young, old, whatever. Like it doesn't matter.
We recruited this Unreal engineer onto our mobile team who came right out of high school.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
he's not even a college dropout. He just came right out of high school.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think there's another team that like I've interacted with tech companies for a long time. I've interacted with lots of big businesses for a long time. I have not seen a team that is as diverse from a background standpoint, not just like a skin color standpoint, and just a mentality standpoint, like a different experiences. Worked blue collar, was in selling Rick's always on the stream, like selling strawberries, not like just like
our berry man.
I remember the first time I saw Rick get on the bus and I was like, are you lost, my dude? And then we started talking. I was like, oh, this dude's legit as fuck.
So Rick, I was one of the guys who interviewed Rick when he was coming on. And like the thing that really sold me on him was just, I loved the way that he talked. He was so authentic. And this is the thing generally with anyone at Replit, is like one of the reasons why you get like a very diverse and like an important diverse way, not like the unimportant diverse ways, is that you were really just selecting for people who love the product, right? Is that like on our side is that like you can kind of look at our sales team and like the people who use the product more are better performers. Nick's an absolute killer, also number 2 guy on Replit, right? Is that like there's a correlation there. And so the thing with Rick was when he came on was like, I just remember during this is that he was so great about talking about like, hey, I can sell to everybody in the Midwest because I can talk that way and I'm passionate about the product. And he was like, the way that I talk about speed is in like military terms, right? The way that Rick talks about speed is he's like, listen, in the berry business, you got to move fast, you know? I just
gotta catch them while they're ripe.
Like, yeah.
Rick's gonna love that he's a shout out. I wonder if you're watching on X. He's often watching.
Yeah.
Shout out Rick if you're around there.
We get so many great people or whatever because like we're selecting for people who really, really love the product. And then like the other thing I'd say for that is like specifically at Replit, like anybody who has any sort of military background is like, I put my foot down across all of this to get everybody with military experience properly viewed for when they're going through the recruiting process. Like this was like, I was talking with like my VP sales, like Patrick, who so he was like, hey, Cody, like you were like the best hire that I've ever done. Like I was the first guy on the team. I was like, I had a software engineering background because like after the military, got a master's and then came on. So he was like, you're like the best hire that I ever had. But I took a big risk on you because like you'd never done any sales experience before. I was like, dude, like I led Marines, you know, like I got all the way up to a company commander. Like you have to properly evaluate the military experience for those. So like we have some guys where it's like, if you were applying for another company, it's like, oh, hey, I was in special forces for 7 years and now I'm trying to make this move into this other thing. Like they might not properly understand like, oh, hey, like this is like one of the most capable people in the entire world, regardless of what you put him into. Right. And so like, I think at Replit, we get a very good job of people in kind of key positions who are able to put their foot down and get people properly looked at for, hey, maybe your experience doesn't properly match what like a normal HR job description would be for this, but like you love the product and you kind of have the right mentality and the right kind of sort of approach to solving problems as you do from this other thing that you can apply here and solve problems. Right.
And then the last piece of like being able to fit into Replit is like, can they handle the intensity? Like, like I said, Amjad, seek pain. We're a pretty intense company, and we work really hard, and we have a lot of fun along the way. But you know, some people need to have that resiliency and grit to even make it through too.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking to a new hire recently. They were complaining about starting Replit and not complaining, but just observing, just like drinking from a fire hose. And I'm like, dude, I'm several months in and it doesn't stop. Every
fire hoses all the way down, baby.
Fire hose all the way down.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nature of the business we're in. Like I was talking about, like the reward for competing, and is like if you're not someone who's like who like loves the reward of, hey, the reward for winning here is that 6 weeks from now we're gonna have to reinvent the product, right? If that's not like the thing, this is not like a steady state job. This is like every week you have to be on, you have to be running as fast as you can because everyone else is, and you have to be doing it faster and better than them so you can break their will to continue to compete with you, right? And so, but it's just like, it is like the most fun thing ever, right? And it's like the most rewarding thing ever of like, hey, everyone here is like super aligned on this. Everyone here works incredibly hard. Like you're never in a position where it's like, oh, hey, I wish other people were moving faster than me. You're always constantly saying, oh, wow, that guy's moving even faster than me. I want to go faster, right?
And you see this directly in product where, I mean, I sometimes go into demos and I like demonstrate the capability. I'm like, whoa, that is a totally new feature.
Yeah.
I have not seen that before until just right this second. But you can see, I don't know if you guys have pulled up the changelog on these live streams before, but it might be worth pulling up now. I don't know if Raymar or Manny, you can do it. But like our changelog is weekly, and we have like 3 or 4 major improvements on a weekly basis, like 3 or 4 major features on a weekly basis, which is insane for the amount of people that we have at this company.
Yep. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Cody, Nick, thank you for being on the show. We're going to have you back again real soon. In the meantime, what's the best way for people to follow you on LinkedIn, X? Tell us.
He's super active on LinkedIn and X, and I kind of lurk on both of those. So.
We'll be sure to drop your handles in the follow-up email. Thank you so much, Nick. Cody, appreciate it.
Bye.
Talk soon.
Bye, everyone. Right on.
That was pretty epic, right?
Action-packed stream.
Ooh, man.
I think I think it was interesting to have so many different perspectives from Vic. I mean, through Victor to Vic. Sorry, two Vics. From Victor to Vic to then Cody and Nick. Dang, that rhymes too. Yeah, it was just such a good perspective. Hopefully, you all appreciate. We're trying to bring a little bit of different angles on like what's happening behind the scenes. You saw us last week, kind of inside HQ. Folks kind of want to get to understand and meet some of the different people, and so we're going to start tinkering with some of that, bringing in different folks from the product side, from the engineering side, from the go-to-market side. Maybe we start bringing in other builders and different people. We start bringing folks in from the community. So you'll just kind of see us continue to experiment with these streams. We're having a lot of fun kind of trying to expose some of this. And as we say every week, y'all keep showing up, we'll keep showing up. You know, like this is it's kind of cool to see the guts of an operation like this. And you know, we just want to share as much of that as we can with y'all.
Dude, when I go to headquarters and I talk to people like Cody and Nick and Vic, I'm like, these people are amazing. And before joining Replit, I didn't really know them. And I'm like, I got to get these folks in front of the community to show our community what amazing folks we have in the background that are super talented, but are also grinding hard to create a great and wonderful experience for you. So
people are calling for Peter. We got to let Peter know that they, like Peter. We've been joking internally, like there was so much good sentiment around Peter. Like Peter, you got a guest role anytime you want it.
Next big model release, we got to have Peter back on to walk us through it. But yeah, like Peter, for example, like sleeper back there, just like cooking, you know, dropping awesome upgrades to Agent 4. And then like you bring him on, he's like amazing to talk to, amazing to chat with. So there's like, I think like there's so many folks like that at Replit here that I can't wait for the community to get to meet.
Everybody that I meet, I'm like, oh, you know, like I'm just not used to being in rooms with this many smart, really talented people. And this is maybe this is common for folks who live in Silicon Valley or whatever, but like I've been a lot of tech startups in Silicon Valley and I don't get the same energy or vibe, you know, when you interact with folks. It's like they're just real. Somebody said, I think Ruth was saying it earlier, it's like it's raw, it's authentic, it's like, you know, it's just, we all understand that we're kind of building on the front edge of the future here. We're all like learning in real time together. I think one of the highlights from this stream is like understanding that we're in the age of the creative generalist. And what I mean by that is having the design skills and the marketing skills and the technical skills and kind of like, you don't need to have 90% or higher in either of those categories. But if you are like somebody who understands enough about each of those pieces and can pull it together using something like Replit, you are going to see such an advantage in the market over the next year or two. We talk about this all the time, Manny. You say it like vibe coding is the essential skill you need to learn. I think it's even one step more than that. It's not just vibe coding. It's how to think about it's systems thinking, right? It's bringing in the AI into this process building that you're doing and kind of connecting the dots, right? So like for a long time, it was all about niche down and specialize. And I think there's probably still a lot of value in niching down and specializing. But as this industry evolves, having a little bit of knowledge around a couple different verticals here, and then blending that with a unique market industry inside analysis, right? Like some kind of unique advantage that you have, again, in the market because you've been working in this industry for a long time, or you have, again, some kind of knowledge or skill set that the world doesn't have. And blending those together now with these type of tools is what's really exciting about this era. I just can't preach about that enough, honestly.
100%. And like what Cody and Nick were talking about is it's the mindset shift. This idea that you're like not a builder, you're not technical. No, everybody's a builder. You are a builder. What do you want to create? Start making that, make it happen, get it out there, finish it, put it in front of people. And that brings us back to Agent 4 Buildathon, which is going to be launching Tuesday. It's now available for you to sign up. The link is pinned in the comments. Go there, sign up, set up your profile. We're going to kick things off on Tuesday. A lot of great content for you.
Yep.
Even if you don't have an idea just yet of what you want to build, just sign up, show up, build with us. We're going to have a ton of fun. We're going to have a great exclusive content on Discord. It's going to be great.
Well, and don't get ahead of us on the Buildathon. Don't try to like get ahead.
Good.
Like the project must be started next week from the date of the Buildathon going live. So if you submit an old project, instant disqualification. You know, so like again, you're going to have to keep up with the flow of what we're doing and
pacing.
Yeah, don't get too far ahead of us. You can be on a free plan, you can be on a core plan, you can be on a pro plan, you can be wherever you want. You'll still get access to the Discord. You won't get access to the pro side of Discord, but you will get access to Discord as part of the Buildathon. And yeah, just tune in. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff. We teased the leaderboard on this last Tuesday. Cody and Nick, they might
Oh,
have
yo.
used to been the big guns in town,
Dang.
but they don't
There's
know
some
now
new
that
players
there's
on,
some
on
new
board,
players in
We got
town, and so
Rymar, we got
Seiji, I think,
Seiji,
Alex
yeah.
and Ethan Torbenson are now in the back,
Oh,
building
the
like
brothers. We gotta have them
Tanner's
on the show.
in the house building stuff. Like, so there's other folks now. So it's yeah.
New class coming in.
That's right. Well, it's keeping them on their toes. They talked about
Right.
competition. They talked about how fast things
We
move.
hear.
So, like, hey, it's coming from the inside too, y'all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. And don't forget to go out there and break your competitor's will to compete. That's
Key takeaway from the whole stream.
break their will to compete. Thank you so much. We'll catch you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.